Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Everyone, hi, you three.
I'm Marilyn. I'm so excited to be here with Sawa and Aaron and Gabriella tonight. Those were great introductions. We had, so much to introduce about all of you. But yeah, we're all excited to hear about Shalom Japan, your restaurant, as well as the cookbook, Love Japan, which is what has brought you all here tonight. But I would love to kind of go back a little bit too and hear about your stories of, the book, Sawa, you talk about coming to Texas here in America for college, and that's when you started cooking your family recipes because you had a hard time accessing that food. And Aaron, you fell in love with sushi as a teenager and started making it at home, and then also did a lot of cooking when you were studying art in Baltimore. And Gabby, I know you've shared too that you grew up in an immigrant, family, and your mom was a self-made caterer.
Self-taught, yeah.
Self-taught, yeah. And so you kind of learned at her elbow, and your family also mixed Jewish and Eastern European food ways.
Ashkenazi.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, I love those kinds of backgrounds, and I feel like that love of immigrant traditions and finding your way with food in a new place has really kind of grounded your work together. But Aaron and Sawa, I'd love to just hear a little bit about how you came to the idea for Shalom Japan. Was it just like an obvious thing you were going to do a restaurant that blended both of your food cultures? Or did it take time for that to, make sense for you? How did that come together?
You want to start?
Sure. Well, I was cooking in Brooklyn in Red Hook, a place called the Good Fork, and I was introduced by my friend who I cooked with to Aaron, and that's how we met.
Okay.
And Aaron was also cooking and in Brooklyn, and then we started like talking about, it was instantly connecting because we're both chefs, and we were talking about like our bayers and like the food we like, and places we like to go eat, and that's how we started getting to know each other. And then he was starting to think about his own restaurant, and he wanted to open a Jewish deli kind of restaurant. And then I had left the place I was working, and I was thinking my own, like I wanted to do like a supper club. So I was doing a supper club, and he was doing like a Jewish food, thinking. And we went to Brooklyn Public Library to do a research one day. Mm-hmm. And who was the
guidebook?
The book.
Oscar is Relevance.
Yeah, he found this book, a tour guide.
Yeah.
And it was talking about all these places, like Jewish restaurants and delis that you can go in the city. And there was a name called Shalom Japan. And we're like, what is this restaurant?
I think the guidebook was from like 1984 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was in their like archives.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we thought that was really funny, and we laughed, and they were like, if we ever do a restaurant together, it should be called Shalom Japan, but that was a joke, right? We were just laughing, like, like if we ever do, and we were just, did our thing, and like, and then fast forward, I don't know, well,
2 years.
2 years, something happened, we decided to do a restaurant together, and then we're like, what's the name should be?
Yeah.
And then we were like, Shalom Japan.
Yeah.
And then we decided to do the Shalom Japan.
Okay.
I think we spent a lot of time like trying to reconcile like if we were gonna do a restaurant together, like what that would look like. And because, you know, we have like very different backgrounds and like very different cooking backgrounds, we're growing up with different backgrounds, and we were like, well, if we're gonna do a restaurant, you know, you wanna work with people who, you know, you trust like unequivocally. You're like, absolutely, like, you wanna work with those people. So we're like, well, we trust each other, so let's do it together. And then we're like, oh, well, what's that gonna look like? Because, you know, it's like Sawa is not, you know, you're I mean, we wanted to do something that was like soulful and honest, right? Mm-hmm. And like, you know, for you, like your soul is like Japanese food. And then for me, I was like, you know, growing up on Long Island and eating at like, you know, Jewish delis and what you would expect, you know, if you grew up on Long Island in a Jewish community. And so we were like, well, how do we like reconcile like those two? And I think that was where we started like kind of jumping off and being like, what should this restaurant look like? And we just wanted it to come out of like our relationship and something kind of, you know, that was natural.
Right.
In a way.
Do you remember the first dish that you both like knew needed to be on your menu?
Was it the lox bowl?
Yeah, definitely.
The
Lox
bowl.
The lox bowl,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Because we went out to eat. It was I think it was actually Valentine's Day. It was like probably 2010, 2011, maybe 2012. 2011 or something like that.
Sure.
It was a long day. But we went out to Valentine's Day and we went to this like really great Japanese restaurant, and we had this whole beautiful coursed meal. And at the end there was this rice dish, and which is traditional. You know, at the end you get the rice course, and it was just like a salmon rice, but there was like a piece of salmon on, like kind of overcooked, and everything was great, but we were like, the meal was great.
Oh,
but
we wish it was a little.
yeah. So then I think like the next morning, I woke up and I'm going to get lox. Yeah. And so I was like, I'll cook the rice. And then I think after that we would wake up and we would like put a whole bunch of stuff, you know, on top of rice, like lox or, you know, and then so we were like, what do we put on top of rice, you know? And I first I was like, why are we gonna put the lox on the rice? Like lox goes on bagels.
Of course, right.
But she got me like excited. She's like, go get it. So then it's gonna be good.
Well, my thinking was like, the lox was totally like cured fish, and it would go well with the sushi rice. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it would look like chirashi sushi, you know? Uh-huh. And we had avocado, we had scallion, we had, I don't know, I was like, we should put like something pickled, you know, and it was like, oh, caper. And you know, we kind of did the very first collaboration.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was it.
I think like from there we were like, well, like let's try to find like common threads in like in the foods that we love, and like, you know, and how can we teach each other kind of about it, like, and sort of look at things with a fresh set of eyes sometimes. You know, like I would have never been like, oh yeah, lox on top of rice. Yeah, that sounds, you know, but right? But then like when I talked to you about it, and then I was like, oh, like, no, you're right. Like that really does make sense. And then, so we kind of, from there, we always were just, and I think even still, like, just look for those things that are, you know, similar, you know, maybe different, but I mean, you know, in Japan, people eat soba noodles, and you know, that's made from buckwheat. And if you grew up eating like kasha, you know, you know the flavor. Like, of course, a soba noodle is different. Yeah. But that very distinct like buckwheat flavor, you're like, oh yeah, that's gonna go well with mushrooms.
Right.
And it goes well with mushrooms in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, soba and mushrooms.
I love it.
Guys, you know, on the note about the capers, I know Gabby, you mentioned this when we were chatting, that even though the capers usually go on the bagels, right? That there was like a deeper wisdom. Remind me what you said about
it was the wasabi and the fish, the way they go together.
Yeah,
I think.
Right.
The capers.
The pickle, I think it was the
ochazuke.
pickle tradition, and how pickles have kind of not quite antibiotic, but like when paired with raw fish.
Antimicrobial. It was
Yes.
the wasabi, yeah. And this is
Okay,
something I've
okay.
stolen. If you're active on the Jewish food talk circuit, you might have heard Jeffrey Yoskowitz speak. He's one of the founders of Gefilteria in Brooklyn. And he's very knowledgeable about Ashkenazi foodways. And he told me once, he's also a big supporter of Shalom Japan, and he tested a lot of recipes in our book. But yes, not to correct
yes,
you.
it was the wasabi and horseradish, maybe?
Yeah, like the analog of wasabi being served with raw fish and horseradish being served with, freshwater fish, gefilte fish. Apparently, the commonality there is they have antimicrobial properties, so I think that they have a positive, like a food safety digestive kind of component to it, which I think with a lot of the kosher laws, there is an element of, common sense, health, eating food that is clean, that won't make you sick, that won't kill you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting that not only, kasha varnishkis, which is like a, bow tie pasta with buckwheat, that has an analog in soba, which is a buckwheat noodle,
Right.
but then there is like further, Sawa's mother as a nutritionist has a nutrition background, and the notion of food as medicine and eating for health is also very central to the, Japanese way of eating.
Right.
And I think what all comes down to is there is a fundamental universality, and we could combine many cuisines, and there's a lot of logic that just kind of dovetails so nicely.
Right.
But the unique expression of the way Aaron and Sawa do it at their restaurant is delicious.
Yeah.
So we get to really benefit from their creativity and the way that they have combined these traditions and flavors.
Yeah, I think even the way that you, so the lox that you use in your lox bowl, you cure that yourself at the restaurant, right? And in the recipe, you use bonito flakes to impart the smoky flavor. How did, that's like a wisdom to marrying the smokiness of this Japanese dried fish to create that smokiness that is, traditional to lox. How did you all come to that, idea?
I think it was like, we were thinking about, when we cure the lox at the restaurant, we put salt and sugar, and we put coriander, black pepper, and put a lot of dill. And you can taste the dill in there.
Yeah.
You taste like the curly parsley and the garlic. You can taste all those things, and I love lox, and we don't have like a cold smoker, so doing it kind of like, getting that smokiness wasn't really an option. So I just started thinking like, well, if it's pulling in all this flavor, like what's something smoky that we could, we're not gonna like put it on a slab of bacon, like that's not
Sure.
right? Like that would be weird.
Why is that weird?
But like, so we started thinking like, maybe, bonito flakes, which, are it comes from the fish, from bonito, and then it's made by like getting dried in the sun and then smoked, dried in the sun, smoked for like a month, 2 months, many months.
Yeah.
Basically till, it's,
That's-
till it's like petrified, and then it's shaved, whisper thin. So we're like, well, what if we put that on there and see like, and it adds that nice smokiness. And of course, it's fish as well. So it goes sort of together.
And adding more umami.
Yes.
Bonito flake is umami.
Love the umami. Another dish you serve at the restaurant that you also translated into a recipe in the Love Japan book is your matzo ball ramen, which I don't know if you all ate, but I'm getting very hungry talking about these things, at the risk of making ourselves hungrier. I'd love to hear first all the elements that go into the dish at your restaurant. Can you kind of walk us through? It just sounds like a textural, like a flavor journey. There's so many, fun elements to it.
You know, like,
Me? So Aaron, it's your mom's recipe?
yeah.
So he makes the matzo ball soup, and when he made it for me the first time, he used the word ho mishpuka, which means the family, right?
Yeah.
Family together. And he used like a whole bird, and he wanted to like use up the whole thing. So he took a breast and he rolled into the like toshon thing, and he sliced, like he cooked it very lightly, and you know it was like perfectly cooked, and sliced it as like a char siu, and then he used the bones to make the soup, and he took some of the chicken fat to make the matzo ball. And he used some of the guts and like bits of the meat to make the what's that? Graplock. the little dumplings.
Yeah.
So that was all in there, and I love the name. You know the whole mishpuka.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
and that he was like, I think this is missing something. He liked. He said he liked putting like noodles in it and then eat as a whole meal instead of like an appetizer. And when he served it to me, he said like, I think he needs like a different noodle, but I don't know what it is. And I was like, oh, you just have to put a ramen noodle. You know, it was like so easy.
So obvious to you.
It's like making a ramen. And he was like, oh my God, that's it. And we started putting a ramen noodle.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
That's-
what am I missing?
The soup mandals.
Soup mandals.
Yeah, you know the little soup crackers. We make those too, because you know.
At a restaurant we make.
Yeah. So they're nice and you get a little crunchy. So you get the springy noodles. See, I no knock on like my mom's Manischewitz egg noodles, like,
Right.
but they're a little, they get a little soggy, and you know, like I think that like. I mean, I love ramen noodles, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
when she said that, and I had been, trying other noodles, but and because I thought of like matzo ball soup as like not just like a clear broth with like a matzo ball and like one carrot and like a little couple of noodles. It was like it's like a whole meal.
Yeah.
And that's how I used to eat it when I was a kid. So when when you said it, it was like, oh yeah, that's a great idea.
Where do you all source your ramen noodles from at the restaurant? Do you make them?
No, we're
Get
not
it
that
from
crazy.
Sun noodle.
I was gonna ask if it was.
Yeah.
Sun
Yeah, it's Sun Noodle. Yeah,
Yeah.
When we were opening the restaurant, like Sawa reached out to them and they like brought us to their like factory in like New Jersey, and they're like, so tell us about the ramen. Tell us about the ramen you're gonna serve, and we're like, we're telling them like we're gonna do like matzo ball ramen, but they're like, well, so it's like a chicken broth, and they had this whole tasting for us on like all their noodles
Okay.
to try to like find the most optimal noodle for like the kind of broth that we were gonna use, and we use a thinner one, and it makes
Okay. Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense. Like we use a thin noodle, and you kind of squeeze it, and it gets really wavy, and
Wow.
and there's like a method to it where sort of like chicken broth is lighter than something like tonkotsu broth,
Yeah,
right, which is
yeah.
like thick. So like the thicker the broth and the heavier the broth, the thicker the noodle that they would recommend. And then even by like squeezing it and making it really wavy, creates like more of a web, and it picks up more of the broth. which
Sounds like Jewish hair.
Oh, yeah. But it makes a lot of sense. So there's a lot of thought that goes into it. Yeah.
I want to go to a tasting.
I do too.
Probably.
I didn't realize that Sun Noodle had. Maybe I did. Their factory's in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Gonna have to do a factory tour.
Cool.
I have to share one detail that's semi-related. We have a colleague at Wirecutter who lived in Japan with her family, and they keep kosher. And she was telling me that they got loads and loads of matzah from the local Chabad and made matzah meal, and were making matzah balls. And one of their sons was dipping matzah balls in shoyu. And that's how they were eating matzo balls in Japan.
Yeah. I love that.
I do too.
Oh, that was Courtney.
Courtney, yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Sorry, speaking of like alternate uses of matzo balls.
Yeah.
So So there's a recipe in our book for oden, which is like a Japanese stew, and it's made with fish cakes and daikon and chicken and what am I mean? So I have a whole egg, potatoes, and so sawa. Like we make it at home all the time. It's a dish that I learned to make. I learned to make it from you. You taught me, and then Sawa is like, I think matzo balls would be good in here, and so she'll take matzo balls and put matzo balls in the oden.
This is the oden. Really,
Yeah.
it's really good.
And matzo balls are really good in oden.
It makes so much
It
sense.
does, yeah. Now I'm thinking we should be putting them in hot pot.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's endless.
Anywhere where like
possibilities.
you need like a spongy
Yes.
red thing that's just gonna taste like the broth,
Yes.
they're perfect.
But you put gefilte fish in a hot pot?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
I feel like fish balls is like the final frontier of the merging of Asian and Jewish cuisines.
Yeah, that might be, yeah.
I feel like the Asian cuisines that I know of that eat fish balls are much less embarrassed by them than we are about our gefilte fish. We apologize so much for gefilte fish, don't we? It's time to end that, I think.
You know, I made it for years at the restaurant and no one would order it.
Oh, no.
And then Sal was like, we really should be frying these. And then, and so that's, right?
Yeah.
And I resisted for like
Labu.
2 or 3 years. And then finally I was like, all right, and we fried it. I'm like, oh, we should have been doing this all along. And it was, and that's how we do it. So we make like gefilte fish, like kind of like takoyaki. And we put
Oh.
horseradish on it.
Oh.
Yeah, so we put so we
Oh.
fry them,
Okay.
and then we put like Kewpie mayonnaise, and then like bunch of al nori, and then like horseradish. on it.
Horseradish.
It's great,
Wow,
That sounds
that
delightful.
does.
and
Yes.
people order it because it's fried.
Because it's fried,
Fried
that's the
salt.
ticket, you just fry everything. Okay, so I know too, when you all first embarked upon writing this book, correct me if I'm wrong, the hope was to do a Shalom Japan cookbook, right? Recipes from the restaurant. So how did that shift? Can you take us on that journey?
The market. Chef cookbooks were cool until they weren't. And when we were writing the proposal about the cuisine of Shalom Japan, that tide was turning as we were writing the proposal. We did put together a proposal that celebrated the merging of Jewish and Japanese flavors, and it was great, but no one bought it. So we went against the odds, and we decided, I said, Aaron and Sawa, do you have another book in you? And they said, yes, we do. We can write about the cooking we do at home, because the tides turned from chef cooking to home cooking, and that's where we still are right now. So Aaron and Sawa, a lot of chefs, they don't eat at home. They don't cook at home. They get home and like they're eating they're eating, I was gonna say Whole Foods. They're eating Big Macs, meant to say fast food, SpaghettiOs, like, instant ramen and like, Kraft singles, whatever. And Aaron and Sawa cook every single day for their family. And
Which is amazing.
I mean, I'll stop talking about them like they're not here, because they can tell you themselves, but it was quite extraordinary because, not only did they have one book in them, they had 2 books in them, and so we started to work on the second proposal, and that is what became Love Japan, which is really a celebration of their personal lives and how they created the culinary, private life at home,
Right.
that was also informed by their professional lives. But it's a very intimate book.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I imagine many of you have looked through the cookbook. For any of you who haven't, the photos really, you just feel invited in to your home and your family. It is very intimate in that way. And I love to, I have 3 kids at home, so I kind of appreciate this turn towards home cooking, because I got very tired of reading a recipe and thinking I will never cook this. But that, reading through your book, it's like, oh, I want to make that, and I will. I want to make that, and I will. They're approachable, but also so delicious. So I loved hearing too about how you thought through, well, what is a home cooking version of this matzo ball ramen? How did you all kind of start to translate that for a home kitchen?
I think with the matzo ball ramen, I just went like sort of just back to the beginning of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, because we also like really like evolved that dish for the restaurant. I think Sawa once said something to me which I thought is really true, and she's like, when you cook in a restaurant, like your goal is to make food that people wouldn't make or couldn't make or wouldn't want to make at home. Like otherwise, like what's the sort of value? Which is not, I mean, there are great restaurants where you could go there and you can make it at home, but that was always sort of your thought, right? Was so we wanted to make it homey, but like no one's gonna do that like at home the way we make it at the restaurant, right?
Right.
Like no one's making their own mandals at home, like no one. So that's why I think so we started eliminating things that were like, I think the starting off point was like, would I do that at home? And I'm like, I don't think I would make my own mandals at home, so to get rid of it, and we tried to just sort of whittle it down to a much more approachable version of it, and really like the dishes. I mean, if you can't come up with a home version of matzo ball soup, I mean, it is, right? I mean, it's like the ultimate comfort food, right? So really, like, we just sort of went back to sort of the beginning of the dish, and took out a lot of the stuff that we didn't think people would make at home and aren't like crucial to like the soul of the dish. So we tried to keep the soul intact, but then cut out some of the other stuff.
I'd love to hear too about, when you're sifting through all the things that you're cooking at home, how did you all work together to decide on what went in the book? You have beautiful, you're gonna make us hungry again. We've talked about like the roasted sweet potato. You have this beautiful miso roasted cauliflower. There's the recipes for curing the salmon and making your rakenji milk bread, which you also use at your restaurant for your sandos. How did you cultivate what you wanted to put in the book? And I know that's a big question, but mainly I'm just trying to get you to talk more about the food.
Well, when we got the approval, I think was it just COVID, right? It was a COVID time. So Aaron was at home. We had to close the restaurant, and so we were just like home. So we were like cooking like breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. And we were like this is the time to actually like write down all the recipes. And so we cook, and then we write down, we cook and we write down. And there are over 100 recipes first.
Wow, okay.
And then we had to cut many.
Well, when the editor says you need to get rid of like 40,000 words or something, we're like, oh.
Yeah, we had a
so
word count and a
big.
recipe count, and you just have to kill your babies. That's an industry term. It is. Kill your darlings. I guess I say that in like grad school.
Yeah, so.
The hard choices.
Yeah. So I think we just tried to also, there was so much, like we could, just keep going, on and on. So we wanted to stick with, different flavors, right? Like not repeating ingredients too much. So maybe that, or like, do we need 3 pasta dishes? If it's a Japanese book, like let's get rid of one of those. Like which of the 2 of the 3 salads do we like the most? Kind of just sort of like whittling like that way. I think was how we started. But I mean, really, when we were cooking, also we wanted, at home, it's like we have like at the time we were like 5-year-old and like a 3-month-old. Wow. So we're like, but they were great because we were like, all right, we got 20 minutes to do this. If we can do it in 20, someone else can do it in like 35. We're like, and they could do it. So we're like, so we're like, they were good at like keeping us like on message, because we're like, all right, like we're not gonna like sit around for, you know, oh, we've got like 7 hours to cook this stuff today.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
we're like, let's knock it out. And I think that was kind of helped us be like, you know, let's make these things like accessible and like that you can do, you know, maybe while like bouncing a baby.
Yeah.
If you need to.
Do you remember I burnt the chicken in the oven because I had to tend to Michael?
No, I didn't. Wait, oh, the miso chicken?
Yeah, miso honey chicken. I
I
had
don't
it in the
remember
oven.
that.
And she started crying, and I was like, I have to go tend to her. And
No.
I think I was, you know, with her for like extra 5 minutes. And I came back, and I was like, oh no.
It's not your fault. It's because there's honey in the recipe.
I was
That's why
gonna
I
say,
burned
the
it.
honey, that's, yeah.
Yeah, it's,
Gabby, what was it like for you collaborating with them? Like, take us behind the scenes, collaborating on a cookbook where they're, you know, writing down 100 long list of recipes. How do you help sort through that? And
A lot of the work of the co-author is in drawing out what Aaron and Sawa have to say.
okay,
So that's the work of any editor, is really connecting to the writer and helping them articulate what's in here.
Mhm.
Aaron and Sawa are the real deal. So they had a lot to say, and their food was great. So for me, it was just a matter of, you know, kind of drawing out, and we had a lot of decision making that we did together. We've made so many decisions together.
Yeah.
We had to follow the rules of the publisher. We had to do right by Aaron and Sawa's story, be true to their story. We had to think a lot about the home cook. So hearing about this journey again really reminded me how Aaron and Sawa have been so flexible, because first of all, it's not easy to write a whole book proposal, which is like a, you know, very long and involved document, get rejected, and then do it again,
Yeah, yeah.
and without any guarantee that you're going to sell the books. That in, you know, one box is already very, it's hard, and it requires a lot of tenacity and faith too. So I was very impressed with their work ethic. And then when it came time to actually deliver the book, they really had to stretch themselves. You really had to stretch yourself to think about things from amateur cooking perspective and not from a professional cooking perspective. And I don't think a lot of chefs can do that.
Yeah.
I think there's quite a divide there between how chefs think about food and how, you know, civilians think about food. And the fact that you were able to put yourself in that headspace, not only on a personal level, I give you so much credit, but I think it's also what made the book a success. So there was so much of that. You're asking what, you know, what it was like to work together and make the book. There was so much just trying to put ourselves in the shoes of the person at home, trying to make a dish that they might never have heard of before, trying to shop for food they might never have tasted before, trying to know when something was cooked or done or made correctly when maybe they've never made it before, trying to help people make a Japanese dish they might have only eaten at a restaurant on a weeknight, on a Tuesday, you know, like low stakes, feed the family.
Yeah.
And so the book has so much education in it too. And Aaron and Sawa are like encyclopedias. Like, you guys rarely had to look anything up. We have a very big glossary in the front of the book that defines many, many ingredients and tells you what equipment to buy and tells you what kind of noodles to buy for which dish and how long to cook them. And it's all in service of the reader having as little barrier as possible to making the dishes and understanding the food. And they all came straight from the brains of Aaron and Sawa. So it was very impressive how not only are they great craftspeople, they're amazing cooks, but you guys also knew how to communicate your knowledge. And I helped you with that. You know, that's my job. But I was very, very impressed with how multifaceted you were and how resilient you were during the process. It's a lot of work.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
It gets you thinking too, like a lot about. I remember like one conversation we had was like actually about that chicken, with like broiling the chicken, and it's like, there's like, no, we broil it, we put it in the oven, and then you're like, well, my broiler in my home is like in a different spot. You know, like there's all these different, everyone has different cooking equipment too. So it's not enough to just say like, oh, you know, and then you start thinking like, yeah, people really do, like, you know, so it's not just about, you know, saying, oh, you know, just put it in the broiler for this many minutes and then put it in the oven or whatever. You got to be like, well, what are all the tells, right?
Right. What are you looking for? What are you listening for?
Because it's also not just enough to say like, just cook it till it's done. Like it's like what you tell our cooks to do. It's like, when's it done? When it's done. You know, that people need more than that. So you have to find that balance of like, kind of like steering people in the right direction, right? But giving them in the tools to succeed with all the, you know, varying kitchen equipment and temperatures. Is your oven calibrated or not, you know?
Right.
Is your oven brand new? Is it all that stuff?
I see Leo starting to signal a little bit. A couple of thoughts. One is, so you all worked on this cookbook. It was during COVID. You got the work done. You published it. You won a James Beard Award, which was so exciting and very well deserved. And you also have a new addition to your restaurant repertoire, right? A cafe called Tokidoki. And you mentioned that a lot of what you serve at Tokidoki kind of feels like an overflow of what you worked on for this book, right? It's some of the like more casual, like comfort food favorites, onigiris, and you're doing your pizza.
Yeah, we're doing
And the cafe and sandos.
Miso soup.
Miso soup.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to stop by and try that. I love miso soup. Like a home style miso soup. I also am curious if you've looked at the Amazon reviews of your cookbook lately.
No.
I'm
scared of it.
Well, I'm giggling because so many of the reviews are like, I love their restaurant and I really wanted more recipes from the restaurant. So now, now I'm wondering, after having done this and kind of proven, right, like what you can do, now I'm like, is it time to resubmit the proposal for Shalom Japan?
It's been written.
Oh, okay.
We haven't.
Right.
We submitted it in 2017.
Yeah.
18.
17 or 18. Yeah.
You know.
Wait, so you've rewritten that original proposal, or you still?
Oh no, I'm just poking fun at the fact that we wrote that proposal.
Well, right.
No one wanted it.
Well,
Maybe they do this time.
Maybe this time.
Maybe
Yeah.
you show them those Amazon reviews. The people want it.
People have spoken.
Should we move to some Q&A now? Yeah. If those of you in the audience have some questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this. So obviously, I think the restaurant and this book are an amazing reflection of the alchemy that is created when you two get together and determine what you want to make. And I guess I'm a bit curious of what is a typical recipe creation process like between the two of you? And also curious if you've ever allowed for external voices to come in and sort of bring their own ideas, whether it's a friend or another chef, to sort of also put their own spin on things when it's when you're creating something. So yeah.
When we do a recipe together, I don't know, we always like either one starts and then we always taste each other's and give each other opinion, and we just take that idea seriously and like keep collaborating and keep adding or keep taking it off.
It's like passing a ball back and forth.
Yeah.
It's like you kind of, I think, yeah.
And we definitely take our friend's opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, our current, we have a sous chef now, our chef who helps us at the restaurant, and he's like, I love babka. And we're like, all right, let's do a babka. So we started making his family's babka recipe, and then I was like, well, listen, we've been thinking about making babka for years, so like let's talk about like what we can put into it. And Sawa loves azuki beans, and so there's the collaboration. He's coming up with he's making the babka. We're throwing in azuki beans and chocolate, because azuki beans and chocolate go great together, and then you got like chocolate and azuki babka, and it's great. You put ice cream on top. It's delicious. So
What kind of ice cream?
Cream
Creme
cheese.
fresh.
Ooh, nice.
Both are in it.
Both are in it, yeah. But yeah, the collaboration is always it always starts with it can start with a meal from somewhere, like when we went out to eat, and came up with the lox bowl, or it could also just be getting our hands on like a really great ingredient because it's like in season. We'll get fresh bamboo from somebody who like forages like in the spring, and we're like, oh, what are we gonna do with this? So it's just sort of, that's always, and then we just pass the ball, go deep.
Hi.
Hi.
I don't mean to make this a leading question, but I was curious about the impetus behind making a book like this that feels so personal. I mean, you're both chefs, but it really reflects the home cooking. I was wondering if there was anything about like an archival sense of like, you're both parents, you have kids, about like leaving this sort of like for posterity. I made it a leading question, but what was the impetus behind the book?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I mean, I know, like, I used to have a lot of friends, and they would like call me up and be like, I'm making like pasta with tomatoes. How should I do it? And like, like always helping my friends like give them recipes. And then so there's always something that was important to me. But then now that we have like children, we're like, this is something that we would want to like pass on to them. Like it's sort of, I think you were saying like, Kaisha doesn't have to call you up when he's in college for miso soup and be like,
Yes, it
open
is
the book.
for them.
Open the book, read it,
They'll each get like a copy when they graduate
Yep.
and head off to college.
Yeah. So I think that a lot of it definitely comes from like that desire to be like, you not have to like, call us and ask how to do it, but like be like, we have like this great record, and they all work, and you can do it.
Yeah, also like, a lot of my mom's recipes are in it, and, I wanted, also my grandma too, so I wanted like kind of write it down, because every time I ask her like, how did you make this? And she was like, I don't know, like did this and that, and I was like, I need like a actual number, so like I was trying to like recreate a harumaki, like spring roll recipe, and I was writing it down, and she was like, a little bit of that. I was like, oh, how much? Like a teaspoon, a tablespoon, so it was good to write all that down, so that like, I won't forget it either,
That spring roll recipe, I love the story. It is the first thing that Aaron ate when you all landed in Japan, the trip that he met your family for the first time. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And I love the way you put it, being like, we walked in, put our stuff down, we're jet lagged, and Sawa's mom puts a plate of the spring rolls on the table, and I think you said that was when I knew my life was taking a turn.
It was great. Yeah, that first trip when I met like her parents and like, so Sawa was in Japan already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and she actually got the first flight out of New York after Hurricane Sandy.
Oh, wow.
And then I met her there like a week later, and then and the first day, her parents live in Hiroshima, so the first day, I got there like late, and I got the spring rolls, and the next morning she's like, I'm gonna take you to my favorite place, and it's like Miyajima, which is very famous. It's like 20 minutes outside of the city, where they have the big giant tori, the giant.
It's an
gate.
island,
Yeah.
and that has not temple, Shinto shrine, and there's like a big torii gate on the beach.
Yeah.
And when the tide comes in, it looks like it's floating, and when the tide goes out, you can walk under it.
And the island has like deer and like and it's known for like oysters. So like everywhere is like fried oysters, grilled oysters, raw oysters, and like it's an amazing place. I was like, oh, this is just great. This is
My favorite.
your favorite place, yeah. So.
I just want to add to this chorus. This is a very personal book, but then there's me who is coming at it with this editorial mind, and I'm like, so we need to preserve the intimate and personal nature of your stories and your recipes. And we also, my big ambition for the book was that it was that, but it was also everyone's Japanese cookbook. The Japanese cookbook on everyone's shelf. It's like you have your French book, you have your Italian book. This is the Japanese book, and I wanted it to be that for people. So while we were staying true to their home repertoire and their family recipes, we also wanted to be very well-rounded in terms of the ones that we chose to include, the chapters that we chose to build, and really being informative about equipment and ingredients.
I want to say too, it's also a very modern Japanese book. You know, like Asian cuisines in general have come a long way, kind of traversed all these different routes in America, but the people's understanding of Japanese food and their expectations for it, again, the Amazon reviews, people were bringing up all the TikTok trends and, you know, and saying that this is such a great book for someone who's interested in Japanese food now, because it has it's not like the 1990s Japanese food that many of us kind of grew up with. So, yes.
What do you, when you say like contemporary Japanese, I think a lot of the East and meets West, like a ketchup pasta or the hot pot.
Right. No. Let's see. I think people reference the karaage. Sandos are our big one. But even starting to recognize there's the soba and the udon and the ramen, recognizing that it's not just noodles. There's many different types and different textures and all of that. I think there's just a more sophisticated, what people want from Japanese cuisine now is so much more sophisticated, and I think this book delivers that in a huge way. But that was a great question, and it kind of, one of my side questions is, do you think your kids know how lucky they are? Because I want to eat dinner at your house every night, and I wonder if they realize.
I came in late, so I apologize if this was touched on. Is there a process in the creation of the book where the recipes are given to someone who is not connected with the book, not connected with you, the restaurant, said, here, give it a try, and how it comes, and how did it work? And so are there any interesting stories that came out of that, or was it just routine, or everything worked as you had hoped?
Well, there's definitely extensive recipe testing, so all the recipes had to be tested by not we kept testing them as well, but by third party, right? So like Gabby's mom did a lot of recipe testing, which was amazing, and friends and other chefs, and so we had a wide array of people testing recipes. I think sometimes they would come back and then they have people who have a fresh set of eyes on it, so they give really interesting perspective that you don't, oh, this is confusing. Or I think we had, the tori gobo gohan, the chicken and burdock rice, and we gave, I had cooked that at home, and then we gave it to
my friend,
your friend, and then he's like, the chicken is raw. And we're like, whoa, that didn't come out right. And then we had to keep you know, we had to work it a couple of times, you know, to make sure that it, you know, so I was like, we gotta cut the chicken smaller.
I can't remember any, like, when my friend tested the strawberry shortcake, like, I didn't anticipate that, like, the use of heavy cream, like whipped cream, she, like, put way too much in the middle so that she didn't have enough to cover the top, and she was like, I ran out of cream. I'm like, well, you should have enough. But we increased the you know, cream amount.
Just to show you, this is the strawberry shortcake. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I think each recipe was cooked at least 4 times by at least 3 different people.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there were recipes, I think the hojicha plum cake we just couldn't find the special, it works for you. I've had yours at the restaurant, it's amazing. It's a riff on the Marion Burroughs plum cake, if you guys know it. It's like the New York Times most searched recipe. But it wasn't working for our recipe tester for some reason. We were trying to make adjustments and it just,
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, it just
remember
wasn't, it was like,
It got cut.
yeah, it got cut.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but we were very diligent about making sure none of these were sent into the world without us feeling confident that they would work.
Actually, I have 2 questions. One is, do you incorporate any Japanese cuisines or flavors into if you prepare a Seder or a Shabbat dinner? And what are they? And 2, have you ever been on a cooking show, competition show?
Good questions.
Well, so for the Seder, we do the gefilte fish, the takoyaki, and where we fry the gefilte fish balls. You know, ironically, owning a restaurant, I don't go to Seders very much anymore because I'm always working on Passover. So, but you know, I think sometimes too, like the collaboration comes across in like more like subtle ways between us. Like so, like for instance, on Passover, like I always make the matzah at the restaurant. I think it's really great.
It's so good.
But you know, but Sawa is the one who makes the charoset. She like, you know, so she's taken on that project over the years, and like I just was like, yeah, it's like a fruit and nut chutney. You know, my mom used to just put like apples and walnuts and a little red wine and grind it up, and then she like really dug into it, and like your charoset is awesome. It's like it's just this pantry emptying array of like nuts and dried fruit, and you know, you really, you know, fresh set of eyes on it.
Third question. Yeah, we'll get that recipe.
What was the second question?
Cooking show.
Cooking show. Kind of. We both went on Iron Chefs with our chefs. We weren't the main chefs, but we were their sous chefs.
Yeah. I remember watching her episode too, before I even knew her or anything. I was like, oh, like I remember.
So separately, you've both been.
Separately, we went on, yeah, when we were.
I will need the season and episode numbers.
And with Anita Lowe,
Anita
Battle
Lowe.
Mushroom.
Oh, right.
You can see a younger version of Sawa, and then you can see a much younger version of me with Tony Liu, Battle Opa.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a big Hawaiian Pacific fish.
Okay, thank you. You anticipated my question.
Yeah.
Last one.
Now that your children are a little bit older than when you were writing the book, do you get them involved in cooking? And do you have some strong views on teaching children how to cook?
Well, our younger one, she likes to like come in and like, you know, want to help.
Yeah.
More than the older one. And I regret not letting my older one do, you know, help early on, because I think he probably have said like, I want to help, like, you know, once or twice, and I was like, no, I got it. You know, I probably didn't let him. And
No, you
that's why
did.
he wouldn't.
No, you did a lot.
I did?
Yeah.
I don't
you did a
remember.
lot. You did a lot. He just wants to like sit on the couch and like.
He'd rather be the eater.
Yeah, but he's our old.
He started like interested more in the Jewish food.
Yeah, so he, you know, Ben Nadler's book about the Jewish deli.
Yeah.
So yeah, and
A graphic
it's
novel.
a graphic novel, and
Yeah.
so our 9-year-old, he loves graphic novel. He loves like any graphic novel, and so I got the copy of the book, and he reads it like every night, and he's like, I want to go to Russ and Daughters, like I want to go, I want to go to Katz's, and so yeah, so he really loves like pastrami sandwiches, like he loves our pastrami, and so we're starting to like take him around, you know, because I realized I was like, well, you know, he should probably go to like Yonah Schimmel, Knish. You know, and I haven't been to Katz's in a long time here because I'm around pastrami a lot. I'm not like, oh, my day off, let me go get a pastrami sandwich, you know. But
The Barney Greengrass too.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm like, wow. A lot of times I don't go to those places because I'm around it so often, you know, those foods. And I was like, we have to really start taking him around. But he's a great eater. I mean, he'll eat anything, like except for like raw tomatoes and avocados. That's it. But he everything else you put it in an eggplant. But you put it in front of him, and he's like, he'll dig in. And he's not like he'll try it. And he'll eat. You know, we took him to Russ and Daughters, and he's like trying all the lox, and he's like, I like the pastrami lox. You know, like, but he really he has a great sense of like of he has a flavor, and like he'll pick out stuff and be like, you know, I like this, you know, it's too sweet, or like I taste this, and he's pretty great. And the other week we were at the farmers market, and they have the kimchi stand, and he was trying every kimchi, you know, and then you know, and then we're trying every kimchi, and then the woman goes, you know, I try one, and I'm like, oh, it's a sunchoke, and she goes, oh, how'd you know that was a sunchoke? And he goes, he's a chef. and she's like, oh, and then he's like, he owns a restaurant. And he won a James Beard Award. She's like, oh. my little hype man. But then we went home, and then he wanted to make the kimchi, and so he picked up a knife and he started cutting up the cabbage. So he's got it in him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think exposing to any food, you know, early on, I think is a great way to start.
Well, and they're eating so well now. At some point when they, you know, if they leave home for college or, you know, and they realize, I cannot get this food every night. I cannot, you know, that.
I mean, that's how I
Exactly,
started. So.
Right. He's going to have to,
Yeah, they'll
you know,
get there sometime.
use this and learn to recreate it
Yeah,
all.
we try to convince the kids that like one day a week, can you please eat the school lunch? Like it's pizza, you know? And like, cause she makes bento for them every day, like, and they're beautiful, the bento boxes she makes.
Boy.
I'm like, can you guys just like, Monday's pizza day, like, can you just have the pizza? And they're like, it's not as good as yours. I'm like, oh God. Like, and then he tells his sister that, and she's like, I'm not having the pizza either. Like, didn't even try it. Like, yeah.
We have the same conversation. It's like, you love pizza. Mom, this pizza, it might sound good, trust me, it's not good.
One last question.
Okay, wait, I just want to quickly ask, how long, it's not my question, but how long does it take you every day to make each of the children's bento boxes?
I'm gonna show you guys.
Really
in
show
the
us
book.
up.
I don't know if you can see, but these are Sawa's
Well,
bentos.
a lot of times I have stuff ready to go. So like, you know, the night dinner from, you know, the dinner from last night. And I was like, I'm gonna make sure to save this so that it's gonna go in the bento box. So like, not that long, you know. I can start at 7:30 and be ready by 7:50.
Longer than a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I just was
True.
curious. I had read recently that Miriam's, the restaurant, Israeli restaurant in Brooklyn, had been vandalized, and a couple of other Israeli restaurants had. Have you had any, has it had any effect on your business one way or the other, the crisis in the Middle East? I'm not looking to get political, but I'm just wondering, because you have the name Shalom, but you also have the name Japan, and how, and do you get feedback from people coming in, or I'm just curious how that's impacted?
You saved the complicated question for the last one. Yeah, no, it certainly has affected us. You know, I would say certainly like after October 7th, we saw like business drop like almost immediately. We could see that. I think for us, we're a little bit in a funny zone because we're not, you know, we're not kosher and we're not. We don't cater to like that kind of demographic, but then since we have Shalom, people sometimes lump us in with you know, being the, you know, whatever hate speech they want to throw our way. So I think we're kind of like not religious enough for people who like, oh, I'll only eat at kosher restaurants, and then sometimes people are like from the real far left are like, you're just a Zionist, and we're like, we're just a restaurant. So and we're just trying to cook food and like kind of bring people together. So we've definitely been, you know, affected by it, but you know, we try to keep it more, you know, we're a restaurant, so.
I just want to say one thing. You're lucky your kids aren't teased by having the bento box, because my kids are Chinese and Jewish, and we used to give them chasu baths, you know, and they would get, you know, people would tease them in school for eating them. So you're lucky that they're not being teased.
I think the school's diversity enough that they would understand, or they might not, you know, but like I tell them to like just don't even listen to them.
Yeah, my kids will tell me which items net them the best trades in the lunchroom. You know, the cucumbers do really well apparently, and you know, they love fried rice. Their friends, I bet your kids do very well in the trade, the lunchroom trades. Last one.
A thing that just occurred to me to ask, and it's kind of a weird question, is if you were 25 years old,
Which we are.
with almost no, well, me too. You had no money, no name, and you wanted to do food. What would you do? What kind of a little place, tiniest place imaginable, would you open up?
If we were 25 and we had no other
No
responsibilities.
money, no name, and you know, you just wanted to do it. What would you do?
I know what you're gonna say. You wanna do a pizza place.
I do, yeah, I probably would do a pizza place, yeah.
We'll probably do like a very small pizza place that doesn't require any servers. We just have to cook and like give it to people. So there's no, we don't have to hire a lot of people to do, you know, because managing people is a hard task.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Aaron, Sava, Gabby. Thank you, Marlene.
So we have the books here for sale.